Charles R. For the first half of my life, I lived in several cities. And when I got into my middle 30s, my wife and I, in a moment of madness, decided to build a house in the country. Now, cities have all these enduring qualities that I very much love. Everything from the YMCA to movies to city parks and pools and sidewalks and lots of people. The country has none of those things. When you build a house in the country, you have to understand that the animals in the country think that you are building a house for them. And that's what you have in the country, is animals. So our house had families of mice that decided to sublet the attic. It had lots of birds that decided to live in the gutters of our house. It had battalions of ants who conquered our basement. We had bees, wasps building nests everywhere. We had deer who ate every flower that we ever planted. And we lived in the forest with a little swamp, and so I would go out in the early evening and I would hear this high-pitched chirping sound, and my wife said, "Oh, those are the peepers." Now, I didn't know there was a species called peepers. And she said, "Oh no," she explained it, "those are the frogs that live in the swamp and they climb up the trees, and that's their mating call." I don't know what planet I'm living on anymore at that point. I go out in the early evening and I expect to see Yoda on the side of my driveway. But the two animals that really made me crazy were a group of squirrels and one particular raccoon. Now, I'm convinced that these squirrels were actually displaced Eastern European acrobats who didn't make it to Cirque du Soleil. They decided to live in my backyard and watched me as I proceeded to put up lots of bird feeders around the yard. And so they would proceed to hurl themselves and climb hand over hand, build little squirrel pyramids and throw themselves up into my bird feeders. So I thought, I'll beat them. I bought a have-a-heart trap. Now you set up your have-a-heart trap, you capture a squirrel in there, you don't hurt it. I put it in my car, I drive it a mile away, and I let it go. So one autumn season, that's what I do. I catch 5 squirrels, 10, 20, 30, 40 squirrels, and a friend of mine says, "Won't work." I said, "What do you mean it won't work? What are you talking about?" He says, "They're territorial. They come back." He said, "What you have to do is you have to get some spray paint their tails, and you wait 2 or 3 days, your squirrels will come back." Now I have this terrible vision of myself standing at the hardware store in front of the Krylon display. I'm trying to decide between metallic red and all-purpose orange. I give up. The squirrels can have all the bird seed they want. And then there was that one particular raccoon. My driveway is about 200 feet stone driveway. I go out in the early morning, sun hasn't even risen to get my newspaper, and I'm walking out one morning and there's a gigantic shape in the middle of my driveway. And at first, I think a buffalo has wandered east from Wyoming. Then I look down, I see it's a raccoon, I think, oh my God, it's the squirrels. They captured this raccoon. They sacrificed it, put it in the middle of my driveway in order to get back at me for the have-a-heart trap. So I call up the local animal protection agency. I said, I have this raccoon in the middle of my driveway. It's dead. Please send the hazmat people. It must have some kind of, Ebola or something. And the woman laughs at me. She says, "Sir, if we came out and got every raccoon, skunk, and all the coyotes that are called in, that's all we do all day." Being a rational man, my reaction is, "Coyotes?" She says, "What you have to do with that raccoon is you have to dig a grave at least 4 feet deep. You have to lime that grave, put lime in there, and then you have to bury that raccoon." And my reaction is, "Coyotes?" So I call my daughter, who lives in a civilized place called Chicago, and I tell her the story about the raccoon, and I say, you know, I'm just going to take a big old black plastic garbage bag, and I'm going to just put that raccoon in the garbage. And she says to me, Dad, you can't do that. I said, what are you talking about? Why not? She says, bad karma. Well, I don't want to mess with any karma, so I haul this raccoon out into the forest, and I try and dig a hole, and I can only get a hole a couple feet deep because it's all rock. And I drop this raccoon in the hole, and I don't have any lime, so I throw in some grass seed and fertilizer, and I bury it in there. And I say, well, in order to complete this karmic circle, I should really say a prayer over this raccoon. I don't have any raccoon prayers. So I say the first thing that comes to my mind. I say, Rocky Raccoon checked into his room only to find Gideon's Bible. So the story is that the peepers and the raccoons and the squirrels will grow on you, but I always miss the sidewalks. Thank you.